We are on the brink of a whole new human consciousness. And how do we get beyond our current limitations that we might not even know are limitations because it's so part of the background noise of who we think we are and what we think life is? Today's guest, Masati, has broken through to his timeless self with 3 near-death experiences. And he returned with a blueprint, a decoded framework for human and machine evolution. And so join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love these shows week after week. We come together and we taste the nectar of life and we follow with spirit and flow and see where the energy leads us. And we explore, what is it that we're here for? Why is this life experience happening? And what do we want to create from it? What do we want to manifest? What do we want to bring into being? And of course, right now we're holding this very special conversation in the middle of quite a lot of transformation on the planet. Things are changing. They are shifting. They are moving. Some things are releasing. Other things are opening up. And some of you might feel like you're in a womb and there's a lot of things releasing, but you're really not sure what's coming in yet. It's a lot of patience, a lot of trust, a lot of opening up and listening, learning how to listen even deeper, even better, learning how to discern the truth of things. We have so many opportunities right now to practice mastery. And it can be a time where you could collapse into a little puddle or you could rise and thrive. And it's really each of our choice, how we want to meet the energies available at this time. And I want to introduce you to a new friend who I met. Luckily, your assistant reached out, Masati, and I was really glad that she did. So welcome to the show. And I'm going to tell some people about you. So Masati is a system architect and the founder of Xponential Intelligence Meta Science, a breakthrough framework that restores coherence across biology, consciousness, AI systems, and quantum fields. And after 3 near-death experiences, he didn't return with just a story. He returned with a blueprint, a decoded framework for human and machine evolution. And his work bridges the gap between science, spirit, and sovereign leadership, offering a new operating system for those who remember that life was never meant to be limited. We have this ability to have extraordinary experiences. And so we're going to talk about this, this experience of near death and experience of getting beyond the personality, beyond your idea of what life is. And I like to just give everybody this visual that comes to me often when I connect with my higher guidance, which is that humanity is sort of on the verge of a really beautiful flowering. And what's between us and that is this massive layer of like smog, which is just like thought forms and the way we think it is. And when you're in the middle of all that and you're trying to get a breath of fresh air,
right,
that's challenging, right? So we need to know that we're breathing in and we're thinking and we're surrounded by sort of like this soupy stuff. And so Masati, you've had ability to get beyond it. Like you had these 3 experiences that helped you move out of this matrix, out of this conditioning, outside the smog, outside the sort of, and then get some insights that were strong enough for you to bring them back through into your existence and for all of us. And so tell us a little bit, whatever feels inspired to share about your experiences.
Yeah, so it is a time of transition and, it's not, say, government or political leaders or anything like that or big tech, leading the way. It's actually, a new consciousness coming in. And, that's been prophesized for, I don't know how many thousands of years, and now it's happening. So what I do is basically help people get ahead of the curve. For me, for example, I have 3 near-death experiences. Most people are starting to or getting forced to awaken. So at this level, I did that, like say 10 years ago when I first started, exponential intelligence. And over the time, 10 years, gosh, over 100,000 client sessions, you start to understand patterns in people, understand patterns in society. And you go, yep, those patterns need to change. And it's not about changing society, but it's about changing who you are at a deeper level. So no matter what I've gone through, it's always about, okay, what pattern was it in me that allowed me to attract or me to be in this, say, reality with all these other people who don't know exactly where they're going. And you were kind of telling about the fishnet example. If society, is pulling you one way because it's a human mastermind, we're all going in a certain direction. So a mastermind at a higher level is whenever you have two or more people come together, you create one more person on top of that dictates the relationship. And this is where, relationships, no matter like what you do, what changes that you do, if that mastermind has been, say, set in stone, no matter what you do, nothing really changes until you break that mastermind. So now imagine 8.5 billion people and then a cumulative total of all those people going in a certain direction, and it could be wrong, right? And I'm guessing it's wrong because the universe is going, hey guys, we're going the wrong way. And hence the big shift, the infrastructures of, finances, religions, government, medicine, and even spirituality. People are looking for more. And so people are awakening and going, gosh, you know what? Whatever we've done got us this far, but there's a better version, maybe the other way around. So the universe is going, hey, we got to go that way. So, and I help people direct that way, going that way.
Yeah, and that way is talked about, at least we study the gene keys in our inner medicine community, and we incorporate that with Andean shamanism. And the gene key wisdom is that, there's just like we had a new human, right? We had several times, we've had this opportunity on Earth for transcendence. We had the Cro-Magnon, we had the Neanderthal, we had the Homo sapien. Now we're like Homo luminous, and people are calling it different things, but it could just be the conscious human, right? And this is the opportunity right now that we have. A lot of people are still stuck in the old model of this separation between divinity and humanity. Like somehow divinity is up there in the clouds and it's over there and it's personified, but for some people. But we have a lot of people now who've like, no, it's in me. Like it's the light in me that is going to shine out, that's coming through this sort of thick layers of conditioning and sort of density of the human experience, and awakening the corpus callosum, awakening these bigger brains that help us to access this higher intelligence. And so I think we're in this shift, and we got a little bit too far for some of the ones that want to cling to the old ways because they're like, no woke, like there will be no woke, there will be no ascension. There will be no, it's basically saying we don't, no, we like it in the way we've known it. But that's not the way the universe is going. The universe is pushing us to wake up.
Yes, and the universe is pushing us to wake up, and some of the methods of the past need to be refined or just completely, say, trashed because they haven't worked, whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. Again, from what I've seen, people believe in things. People have certain rituals or customs and all that, which is totally fine. It's fantastic. But if you're not getting, say, the results at a very deep level, then that's the thing that needs to be refined or edited. It doesn't matter, the belief systems or how old the knowledge is or anything like that. And that's really the key. We need something brand new, because if the systems worked, we would have been, say, an evolved, say, species already. But obviously the systems have, say, been broken down. Sure, it got us so far, but again, we need to go to the next level in our journey. And you were talking about Homo luminous, right? We're getting into that phase where we're actually starting to understand that there is no separation between, say, my physical body and my spirit. I call it that timeless self. There is no separation. In fact, it's a flip where people go, this is me. I need to connect to my spirit. Well, in reality, your spirit or your timeless self renders the physical body here. And that's what, really what's happening is like, we're starting to understand. It's like, oh, this physical realm is not me. I'm not of this physical realm. I'm part of it, but I'm not created from it. I am a reflection within this realm. And that's what's happening. The key is, though, Carrie, is with every upgrade in species, like Neanderthal to Cro-Magnon to the modern man to, again, where we are now, every time if you look at history, every time there's been an extinction of that species, and then about 10 to 13,000 years later, a new version of that species comes through. That's the key. And that's what we're getting into is like, are we intelligent enough to let go of the past and continue on? Or will the universe dictate that we end this level or this version of species and then upgrade 13,000 years later?
Can we die while we're still awake and while we're still embodied? Can we be so courageous as to die to who we think we are?
And that's what you're getting to. Yeah, exactly. Hold on to, their spiritual notions, their religious notions, and again, their success mechanism or their science. Can we let go of that and like transition? Can we upgrade? Can we have like our software update on the fly? Or do we have to like upload it, shut down our system, or basically go extinct and then repower us up? So that's the big question. And a lot of people they're fighting it going, this is the way we want. And it's like, well, those people will probably get shut down.
Yeah, because it's not sustainable. I mean, most of the people saying that are people who want the old systems that are broken. They have all this trauma inherited inside of it. And it includes like a misuse of resource and, not a conscious way of interacting with the planet. And it's not sustainable. The planet can't sustain us continuing this way. We must change in order to survive. And it sounded really dramatic to me, but when I wrote my last book, Inner Medicine, the subtitle was Becoming One with Mother Earth for the Survival of Humanity. And I thought, that's so dramatic. But that was the guidance. But it's clear. It's because we need to see ourselves as one with all of life on this planet. And the Native Americans did have this wisdom. And I always got the insight that indigenous people, Native American, that there is some really good wisdom that they had actually that can sustain us through this shift that we're going through. But it's not that alone. It's that with what you're talking about as well. It's like a whole new consciousness combining with learning how to talk to the animals and the plants and the mountains and being connected with everything. It's both together. It's a new fusion that's happening, I feel, on the planet. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes. Again, there's a lot of great wisdom that brought us this far. And maybe throughout the years, we've kind of lost that wisdom. We've kind of gone back to, just the physical density or the value structure of how much money you make, how much, can you, integrate into society, how efficient you are, so on like that. Even on the spiritual side, it's not just one side or the other. Like all aspects of humanity, because we're all in that mastermind, is like we're moving that same way. So in this case, the universe is literally asking, it's like, what methods are you going to use to keep going another direction while, the masses are going one direction, and then you're starting to say awaken. You're that pioneer that starts to go in another direction, and you're light. And by light, it's not what you do, it's who you become. How much is your light within you? How much can people see your light, your presence? You walk into the room, you don't have a title or anything, but you walk into the room and people look at you. It's like, damn, that person, like, what's different about them? So that light will take you into that direction, and more people are awakening into their true light. And their true light is not based on methods or procedures or belief systems or customs. Their true method is based on, say, the natural intelligence of this reality.
Yeah, I think and the 59 gene key is the one that's really prevalent. Transparency, intimacy and transparency is because that brings us into our divine light, our true essence. And like you're talking about, the more that the true essence shines forward, the more we can bring this new momentum. And it could happen like this because the strongest energy leads. But the strongest energy doesn't need to be masses because the strongest energy is divine presence, right? So the smallest number of people could be affecting a global change as we reach, right? So talk a little bit about that net breaking, right?
If you read the book Power versus Force,
yeah.
But one individual can say, open up or expand or enlighten hundreds of thousands of people, say like a Jesus level frequency. That frequency hit, his light, not the religion, by the way, I just want to make that clear, not the religion, but the man. Because again, the religion, well, I always say, if you're not getting the same results as a Jesus or a Buddha or Muhammad, you're probably not doing it their way. You're probably doing it wrong. And we just have to understand that. We can't just hold on to it. But getting back, I mean, their light, whether Buddha or Jesus or those great individuals, their light still shines upon us. Could you imagine? And that was thousands of years ago. So that's the truth that still shines. If it wasn't based on truth, they would have been long past in history. They would have been mentioned. But again, their light is very, very potent still today. Can you imagine that? And as we clean up, we feel the resonance of their light. And maybe that's what you're talking about. It's not, as we clean up, we see the source around us so much more because we're not numbed. We're not putting, say, protection or layers of distortion around us. We shed that away and then we feel that light even more. It's always been around us. But again, it's all those layers that we put around us, thinking that we're this and we're that. But all that has to get removed.
And what you're really talking about is attachment, right? Attachment to the identity, attachment to our perceptions, attachment to how we think life should be or what we think it is. I mean, down to like even the sky is blue. I mean, it could really be that dramatic. What are the conditions that we're holding on to that are actually just simply in a collective agreement?
You get into deeper, Carrie, where in this realm, it's like, well, I just want to be me. But that me is, they're ill. They don't understand who they are. They've been abused. They're aging like their parents. You look like your parents or whatever. That's not you. That is not you. And most people go, well, I just want the freedom to be me. And again, who you think you are is not you, because those are all the limitations or the filters, like you were saying. That's your identity that you're comfortable with, but that's not the real you. And what you're seeing today is the pain, the burdens of peeling those identities that, have been tattooed upon us, for generations, right? You're running patterns of, your parents and their parents and their parents and so on and so on. It's like, gosh, that's a lot of burdens that you're carrying. That's not you. Societal patterns, generational patterns, all those things you have to like peel away, kind of like snakeskin. You get peel away and you get into, say, the beauty. But what most people do, like imagine this, snake skin. What if a snake shed their skin, but it just stayed on them? You would see the grotesqueness of the snake, but you wouldn't see the brilliant. I don't know if you get into snake. My kids, we've always snakes.
They're such a mama. Yeah, absolutely.
Great snakes. But if you've ever seen them peel away, sure, it looks a little ugly, but when everything is peeled away, my goodness, the vibrancy of their skin and the essence and the beauty is like, my goodness, it's so amazing. But humans tend to go, nature goes, let go of that skin, and what we do is like, no, I want to hold it on. It's like, well, you're going to die. Your beauty is inside, but people and you look at the outside and the ugliness and the distortions of the past. And that's what's happening. The universe is going, no, you got to let your beauty shine. Let's peel that skin. But people go, God, no, that ugliness is me. That trauma is me. It's like, it's really not you. Sure, it's what you've gone through, but that's not you. It's an experience, but that's not you. And we need to separate the difference and remember, our potential of who we are.
When we spoke last week, we actually spoke a few days ago, and Masati gifted some of his healing work with me. And well, first of all, your mental clarity on like, oh, these are the patterns. It was like, oh yeah, you're tuned in. I always appreciate that because, it's kind of like my litmus test. Can you actually see, or are you going to make stuff up? But you actually could see, and you were talking about my ancestral line and my grandmother. And my grandmother grew up, for those of you who don't know, my grandmother grew up migrant farm worker as a child. And she immediately was put into duty, taking care of the two younger kids, and all the kids worked in the fields. And so there's this like heavy poverty consciousness, right? That is in my family line. Plus then my grandmother became extremely Pentecostal Christian and really like believed in women don't have power and they serve the man and all this kind of stuff that I've been battling my whole life. And we talked about that. It's like, that's not who I'm here to be. I'm not here to be subservient. I'm here to be a beacon of light. I'm here to be the resurrection of divine feminine. And so you could see the contrast between what my grandmother chose and what I chose. And plus my mom in the middle, like, no way, no how, so kind of interesting.
Well, let's just break it down for your audience, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're more awake. You get to see the patterns that you're running, right? And then what some people do, so that's that level. But then there are people who aren't awake to their patterns. They don't understand why things are happening the way they are. Then they double down on the patterns that are destroying them because they think that's them. So for you, for example, back in the day, what you've done is like, gosh, okay, these are the patterns, but then I need to be here. But again, like I was saying, you're always referencing the patterns that you don't want to be here. But the more you claim your success, the more the distortions have to expand for you to say, again, balance out. So what I did for you is like, okay, well, Carrie, there's a better version of you out there. Why compare yourself to the past? Why don't you compare yourself to your pure potential, your high potential? And you might not even know what that is, but you're already pre-programmed for it. And it goes way beyond, say, our concepts of the mind. I know I've been there. I've died 3 big deaths, but many dozens of mini deaths, let's say. And you see people's potential. It's like, oh my God. So what I did was helped you tether to your potential rather than what you don't want. Because that's what a lot of people do in spirituality. They came into spirituality because whatever it was in their life, money or love or whatever didn't work. So it's like, I'm going to find it. But again, I see it tons and tons. And even the big names out there, they literally run away from who they're not to define who they are. And that burden just attaches onto them because that's their identity.
Yeah, and we can learn to love and accept this part of us as like part of the journey that became, it was an incentive to wake up and to go, okay, it was a question. Do you want this?
Yeah.
No, I want my potential. I want my highest destiny. This is where I'm headed. This is what I want to go for.
Yeah, and it's not that you separate yourself. You basically love yourself so much that you can go, okay, I can let that time moment go for me. That's what true love is. You know what I mean? But most people, what they want to do, or like what trauma, I can kind of sense that in your group, people have gone through trauma, so they become spiritual. So what that is basically is like, no, I need to heal this version of myself before I can go to a pure version of myself. That's what most people do. And that's true. So it's not about, well, just forget about this version. Just live in love and light, because then that's what people do. But this version is still broken. It's still wanting that love. So it's not about separating and just going, yep, I only see this version. It's about turning around and going, okay, what is it that I really need to heal this version? And from my point of view, it's like, okay, that moment, give it both, the spirit side and then the science behind what we call spirituality, which is the real science of everything, really. It's like, okay, in that moment, your time moment is still open. You didn't close the books on that time moment. So your light is diffracted and you're living from that moment. In fact, if somebody has a trauma, say at 12, and you're 40 now, what people do is, they run the current time through their light. They'll shine their light on their trauma and then reflect back into their current moment. Did that make sense for you? That's how they remember.
It did. Here's one thing I want to have you look at, because I feel like there's this exponential healing possible when we, let's just say, if we're actually the co-creators of our existence and we're actually here and we're the database of our own soul's experience and we are the co-creators of it, right? Mm-hmm. We can't necessarily change what happened in the physical reality in the linear timeline, but we can change the version that lives inside of us. We can alter it. We can bring it more love. We can bring it more of those things that from our higher perspective now, standing, looking back, we would give ourselves. Like if you've become a super loving person and you had a lot of trauma when you were young, you could be that loving support that you are now, right, and replace the sort of parental figure you had then with yourself now, because yourself now is very wise and loving. Then that sort of lifts the entire timeline, because then everything changes from that moment because there is no time. So the whole thing lifts.
And that's perfect. So let's just refine it a bit where you say, again, you got traumatized at 12, but then what happens is that traumatized person still exists today. So what we're doing and what you're talking about is like, wait a second, why don't we just go back from an evolved perspective, because you're still carrying the limitations of that child into your new self. So if you start to separate yourself, and that's the separation, you start to understand that I'm not the trauma. we can separate, we can reference. It's like, oh, that's what's happened to me. And then instead of looking at it from, say, a kindergarten point of view that didn't know what was going on, you're going back in time. Because again, it's not a mental state. I take people back in time and they heal that moment, Carrie, so deeply where they go, oh, if I was awakened, that situation would have evolved me in this way. So again, like you said, you can't change what happened to you, but you can understand it from a higher perspective. And that's what, so people go through a near death. You've heard of near death stories where people go, I relived my life, and people go, well, and then it's a judgment situation for people, either, go to heaven and go to hell, but it's not really like that. Basically, you remove yourself of the situation and you see yourself not from a kindergarten level going through life and not understanding it, but a high level being going, oh, yeah, that's why that happened to me. And then you understand it totally different. And then you go, oh, that's why it happened to me. And then you cherish those moments. You even cherish the trauma because it allowed you to, say, expand and accelerate. But you can't cherish trauma if it's destroying you. And then you close that moment and then your light, that's how you create light or more light. All those diffracted versions of you that are living out there, they close off and your light is focused like a laser beam. And then you just like glow.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what real, say, spirituality is. That's what real science is. When you start to define things so purely that you're so pure, you're not like distorted. You're not like, oh, what is it? When you buy something, it's just natural. And then you look at the ingredients like, oh, 3%, natural ingredients. The rest is, we don't know what the hell it is, but it's natural. You're like 100% natural. It's like, oh, that's what it is. And you just like, you emanate. Your skin just emanates. You're just healthy. You're vibrant. Your wealth actually helps you rather than destroys you. Your religions and spirituality actually help you rather than put you in a box and imprison you.
And it gives you the permission to ask if it works for you on your own path. I love that. It's like instead of walking around with a lot of wounds, you walk around full of wisdom. And I think that's the most beautiful thing we can give ourselves is the ability to be in wisdom instead of wounds, the ability to really let ourselves walk around as wise beings, as ones that have had the experience and not only had the experience, but from the higher percent. This is something that, many people I work with when they first start with me to have trouble understanding is that we chose these experiences and this is not like victim shaming. So please, let's get beyond that. But it's just like we chose these experiences, like you said, because it's going to catalyze something really, really deep and powerful for us when we move through it at a soul level. And the personality experience is the pain. And that is, thank you, for being the interface. But it is important to also honor that, the pain as well as the wisdom.
And, just a couple things, Carrie, yes, we do choose it, but it's not like we consciously choose it or not awaken. It's like the next step in our evolution. So remember that because people go, when we go, well, we chose it. It's like, damn, how did I ever choose this life of mine? Why did I ever choose this life of mine? But think of it this way. I call it the event horizon. So you have all these possibilities. And then as time narrows, it basically comes down to one choice that you can make in that moment of time. So if you think of it as, you're like 200 miles away from a hotel in San Diego or 1,000 miles away. Well, from 1,000 miles away from San Diego, you have so many choices, but as you get closer and closer to San Diego, it whittles down to very few choices, and by the time, you arrive, you've made your choice. And that's how most people's lives are. They really don't consciously go, what path am I going to take? They just see whatever's the choice in front. So with that, your choices that you've made, you agreed at a family tree level between the version of your mom and dad, and then their choices, accumulative total. You didn't like consciously go, wait a second, mom's throwing this bunch into my recipe of life. Dad's throwing this bunch in. You didn't stand over yourself because you weren't that awakened. You made the choice of the parents that you had for sure, because that's the family tree. But then you when you were awakened, I help a lot of women, that are pregnant, make the right choices as their babies come through. And then, so that spirit that's like choosing the life, they go, oh, I don't want this version of my mom. I don't like that. I like that part of my mom, but not that part. I don't like the way, her hip structure is like, debilitating and all that. And then so you choose the blueprint that you're going to be running. Even before you have a brain, your higher self is chosen. And then from 0 to 7 years old, this is where we make choices. It's like you run through, you observing your parents, and this is by the time, you get educated, and by the time you're 5, 6, I've got 6 kids, and they always ask you, it's like, Mom, Dad, why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it this way? Because they're seeing the blueprint of what they could have, and they're seeing what reality is offering us. And it's like, I want this, but Mom and Dad is running this, and society's running this. So maybe they know better because they're in this environment, then they survive. And then that's where they go, well, I'll throw the handbook away and I'll go with what Mom and Dad's having. So, so is it free choice or is it a choice?
Or even just realizing you have a choice, because of course we have a lot of programs, institutions, structures running that say you don't have a choice, right? But that's false, because everybody has a choice, and asking questions is the way to figure out what, your choice is. But I think like you're right. Like when we start off, at least for me, in the level of consciousness on the planet and in my family tree, I didn't really wake up to realize what I was choosing until mid to late 20s, maybe 30s. And definitely when I had my first baby and I had my spiritual awakening. Because being a mom is a spiritual awakening, and it is, wow. This blast of light came through me and all my shadows went, to the surface.
And I'm glad you let that go. Some moms, unfortunately, will hold on to that even deeper, which isn't good for them. It's not good for the, baby.
That is part of when you did the healing, and we're going to wrap up in a few minutes, but when you did the healing with me last week, I really noticed that I was holding on to roles, right? I think we all hold on to roles. Like mother is one of those roles that we find a purpose. We find a purpose in life. We find a value. We find importance in ourselves. Finally, we're here for something more than ourselves. And that can just become a limitation later. And it can be an obstruction to having a really good relationship with our kids. And so, I found myself, I've been in the process of releasing it, but then I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Like setting our kids free from our, we're looking at it from setting ourselves free from our ancestors' programming, but we can also go setting our kids free from our programming. We can also go, we're releasing that, and they get to self-select what they want to move forward with.
And it's not a conscious choice. And this is where it's amazing, what you're talking about, Carrie, is that when people go, they raise their XIQ, as I call it, their exponential intelligence quotient. And that's at a frequency level. Obviously, physical level, logic, emotions, all that change as well. But it's so powerful that your kids are always, say, watching, or your kids are always, say, pinging you to see the environment because they trust you. You were born of them, right? So what happens is that as you change, your kids automatically change. Even if they don't live with you and they're younger and they're willing to change, the younger they are, the better. They go, oh, Mom knows what's going on now. And then they start to change. So they get that free will, so to speak, from 0 to 7. They go back into that realm where they had the choice that they didn't know how to choose properly, which is really, really cool, which is really, really exciting. And then, I guess as we close up, but the cool thing I want to leave the audience is that you're saying, and there's nothing wrong with a mother role, a father role, or being an entrepreneur or being spiritual, but let's define what that means to you. Where did you get the definitions? Yeah, write it down and just really ponder. It's like being a parent. Did you really think about it? Or are you just, especially if your kid's in an emergency situation, what do? Do you snap back to what your mom or dad did? Boom, and then it's like, oh, that worked. That wasn't a choice. You made a choice, but it was like, I don't want to say a forced choice, but it was like, yep, that's a choice. It's easy. It's off the shelf. Mom did it. So I'll just take that choice. We didn't go, Mom did it that way. Let's remove some of these things. You didn't special order the choice for you. What I'm saying.
Yeah. So many of our choices are definitely sort of like default patterns, instead of conscious choices.
There you go.
And then seeing where we came from and why. I feel like for me, what's been most healing on my journey, as I studied with so many different people who have walked this path and have received levels of awakening, right? And they came from different environments. And I just kind of followed my nose to different people. And I was like, oh, wow, I like to see different models. Like, oh, look at this. Do I like this level of love? I do. I like how this person's so compassionate. I like how this person, I'll just see somebody in a community with their child and I'll go, I like how they're treating their child. I really like that. That feels good to me. And I just pocket all of those little snippets, right? And then I come into my own healing work and I say, okay, now I'm going to go back and quantumly heal. I'm going to give that to myself because I can keep upgrading the love that I'm giving to myself. And then that in turn upgrades my sort of expression that I can give to my kids so that when the challenge comes up is, because we're learning all the time, then I can meet that challenge with more love. And I can ask within myself, what model do I like the best right now in this moment? What feels the best? How do I want to meet this? And then start to sort of climb up out of this weird system that we've gotten ourselves mired in. I don't know how that lands with you, but that's kind of how I feel.
Totally true. Most people, they see something different and then they hold on to, or they justify, where they are. But if you let go of the justification, sure, whatever happened to you, but is there a better version of you out there? Really, if you just keep asking, it's like, gosh, is there a better version of me out there and how can I access it? If you just keep that an open question and instead of writing all these goals and, post-it notes and, vision cards, and if you just go, is there a better version of me out there? How can I access it quicker, faster, more efficient? And just keep asking yourself that one question. You'd be amazed at all the distortions that you run fall away. And then that's where, because most people have blinders depending on, their previous history, right? This is where you date the same kind of people, right? You got to remove, this helps you remove the blinders. And then you go, oh my God, there's so many choices I had long ago. And it's like, oh my God, there's so many more choices right in front of me that I didn't even see. So if you just keep asking that question, it's like, what's my purest possible version of myself in the next moment or in this moment? And that's it. Your higher self will kick in. It's like, oh, they want a pure possible version. Because like you said, we're creators of our reality. But if you ask that, it'll just like start coming in for you. But you have the free will to go, I'll take my old version or I'll take my new version. You'll have to make that conscious choice.
Yeah. So what you're saying is go direct to the you outside of time and ask that question. And I was thinking the other direction we could go, because a lot of people go to the past, right? But we could also go to the future, assuming we're going to keep evolving, because we will. And we just go to the future self and bring in the patterns from the future right here.
If you're asking your future self, like, what's my best possible version of myself? Well, you're processing, either brain or at a higher level, basically goes, okay, these are the things that I've done in the past. And these things worked out. These things didn't work out. And then so there's still processing. You're still comparing what's happening to you behind there in the past. But then your brain will split out the answer and go, oh, this is what I need to do. So you're still comparing. Most people compare it with their minimal, say, logic. I hate to say it, but your knowledge base at the brain level is very minimal. I would say 1% of who you are compared to accessing the knowledge base at your spirit level or your timeless self level.
Okay. Yeah. So go out to timeless self and ask these questions, how can it get any better than this? What more is possible? Yeah. What do I really desire that I don't even know I desire?
Exactly.
Excellent. Wow. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for bringing your love, your light, your blessings, your wisdom, your potency. And is there anything that you want to invite people to get to know you better, to connect with you for a first time? How would people do that?
What we do is really intense for people. So just to get your toes wet, you can go to Masati, MASATI.live. That's my YouTube channel. There's a lot of free content on there for you. It basically life explained. It tells you why things happen the way they do and what you can do about it, to again, become your purest possible self. The xicode.com. That's the main website, and you can access, some of the programs. The 10-day is really powerful. Know thyself. Really, really powerful. You can literally feel the change, day by day as you go through it.
Beautiful. I highly recommend it. And I hope you guys enjoy that. And Thanks for staying with us all the way to the end. And please like, share, subscribe, share this out with anybody you think might be open. And I'm going to send kisses. You can join me if you want, Masati. We're going to send kisses to everybody. We love you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in and being here on Earth at this time. Love you so much, everyone. We'll see you next time on Soul Nectar. Bye for now. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, awake, show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.